Hi, and welcome to the Bruce Channel. I'm Bruce, and whoa, weather-wise, we had some 70s earlier in the week. Then a few days of chill, not terrible, and then a return to reasonably mild. So with all of that going on, the azaleas still are not awake. You know, they were awake, one of them was, in December, but they will peak in about a month. Now that's in Augusta for the Masters. Here we're a week or two behind that. So I told you last week that the daffodils were coming up. This past week, I did have to do my very first mowing, not the entire lawn, but some of it needed it. And now, just over the last couple days, the camellia is about to pop. All right, so then also around midweek, just after dawn, I looked up, crystal clear sky, and this is the waning moon. And it was so striking, I want to try and show you. I don't think I captured it particularly well. Still, it is a reminder that this moon will go away soon. The new moon arrives March 9th. 2 weeks later, we'll have a full moon. So, here we go. It's just a bit over 2 weeks until the vernal equinox. That's March 21st. Which means, boing, 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 yes. Just as the man said. Which also means, you still have time if you're so inclined. I mentioned this tip last year, but if you missed it, and if you plan to color Easter eggs, the vernal equinox is March 21st. Easter is on the first Sunday after the vernal equinox, after the full moon, right? So anyway, Easter is March 27th. It's about 3 weeks. So repeating last year's tip, you know how sometimes you can peel a hard-boiled egg in about 5 seconds, 7 seconds? Or sometimes you fight with the shell for seemingly 5 minutes? Aged eggs. Easy to peel eggs are at least 2 weeks old. Longer is a little bit better. So if you get your eggs now, today, you won't have to fight the eggshell. And eggs keep really, really, really well. I just learned this week that in Europe, most of Europe, eggs are not refrigerated. But neither are they scrubbed. There's a natural barrier that keeps the air from penetrating the egg. But stateside, our egg producers are mandated to scrub the eggs, and that removes the barrier, so they still keep a long, long time in the refrigerator. But a friend of mine worked on a ship, this is years ago, and limited refrigeration space, you know, but crew, lots of eggs. So in order to keep them fresh, the cook merely dipped them all in vegetable oil, again keeping the fresh in, the air out, and not using valuable fridge space. So, oh, and if you wanted to, if you wanted to plan way ahead, way, way ahead, Easter next year is April 16th. All right, Super Tuesday is now history. On the Democratic side, not much surprise, really. Senator Sanders won his home state of Vermont. Not a surprise. He did win 3 others also, Minnesota, Colorado, and Oklahoma. Meanwhile, Hillary took 7 states, including Vermont neighbor, Massachusetts. She's way ahead in the delegate count. Meanwhile, the shouting goes on in the GOP. Donald Trump again got the most votes and the most delegates and the most states. Ted Cruz won his home state of Texas. Trump is going to get some of those delegates because it is not a winner-take-all state. Senator Cruz also took Oklahoma, but you know, that's next door to Texas. And he also got Alaska, and that's far from Texas. Meanwhile, Dr. Ben Carson didn't win anywhere. He got a few delegates, but he nevertheless announced on Wednesday that he didn't see a path to the nomination. He did not actually formally end his campaign, but he announced that he was not even going to attend this week's latest debate. Ohio Governor John Kasich didn't get any victories of states either, but he's staying in, and he's hoping to do well in neighboring state Michigan. That's just in a couple days. That's Tuesday the 8th, and then a week after that, Ohio, winner takes all. That's his home state, obviously. And if he doesn't win there, obviously he's out. And on the same day, Florida, another winner take all. It has its primary, and if home Senator Marco Rubio doesn't win, it's lights out for him too. But even there, Donald leads in the polls. All right, so this most recent debate Thursday night, they will, by the way, do it again the next couple of Thursdays. Anyway, Before the debate, what was strange was earlier in the day, 2012 Republican nominee Mitt Romney made a speech which ripped Donald Trump. He didn't endorse any of the others. He simply said, anybody but Trump, ABT. This is truly unprecedented. The previous nominee arguing that the front runner in the current race is the wrong guy. I don't know if I really take him seriously. It may simply have been that the establishment, having lost Jeb Bush and Senator Rubio not doing so well, maybe they needed a hitman. I don't know that. But Governor Romney did strike me as a bit disingenuous. Two main reasons. He loved Donald Trump in 2012. Trump endorsed Governor Romney's candidacy. So at the time, he called him a great businessman. Loved his judgment then. And then the other reason is Romney said Trump flip-flopped on issues. But Jiminy Christmas, one of the reasons Romney lost 4 years ago is probably because if you examine his own record, it showed exactly the same pattern. He was for this, and then he was against that. So, how to know? Anyway, this recent debate, I described the previous one as a knife fight. This one was more like a sinking ship, and not everyone being able to swim, so everyone trying to climb on top of everyone else to stay above the surface. You know? Now, Governor Kasich of Ohio did not do that. He's the only one who acted as an adult. There were a few minutes here and there that were civil, aside from Governor Kasich's. But even combined, all those civil moments, they seem so rare that I would not be far off characterizing them as one brief shining moment that was known as Camelot. Okay, I did think there was one particularly funny line. Now, I'm going to show it to you, but it comes from Senator Rubio, and he is off camera when he says it. It even broke up the moderator.
President Bush's nomination after he made it, I would not have made that nomination. But let me point out,
not what you
Donald
say in the
actually
op-ed.
cared.
That is not what you said in the op-ed.
Donald, please, I know it's hard not to interrupt,
but it's not what you said in the op-ed.
Breathe,
Lion dead.
breathe. You can do it. You can breathe. I know it's hard. I know it's hard, but just...
When they're done with the yoga, can I answer a question?
You cannot. I really hope that we don't see yoga on this stage.
Well, he's very flexible, so you never know.
Well, vis-a-vis the debate, if you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't, I can sum it up for you in about 10, 15 seconds. Well, I never tasted
You're just wrong. Who cares you went to law school? Who cares? I went to law school. Who cares? You're just pathetic. You're a liar. You lie too, little Marco. You lie all the time. You know what? Mine's bigger than yours. Mine's bigger than yours. Mine's bigger than both of yours combined.
All right, for general nonfiction, the 1962 Pulitzer Prize went to Theodore H. White for The Making of the President, 1960, which analyzed in great detail the campaigns of both Richard Nixon and John Kennedy. It was the first in what became a series. He did similar analyses of the elections in 64, 68, and 72, and I've read them. I own some. This is a copy. This is actually a commemorative edition of The Making of the President, 1960. So, as I have said several times, and several times prior to that, and so have many others, this campaign is like none in memory. Certainly the coarseness of the language is unlike anything previously seen. I heard a discussion this week about Downton Abbey and how, yes, there's always an undercurrent of tension, but it was a time when civility ruled, and the discussion then proffered the idea that it is our very coarseness, the incivility that has become norm, that fostered Downton Abbey's enormous success, seen by more viewers than anything ever before on PBS, including Ken Burns' Civil War. So that perhaps deep down we return to manners. That's what we hope for. Well, here's something interesting. In Ted White's book, Chapter 1 sets the stage, reveals the election's outcome, which is not a murder mystery. In 1962, we knew who won. In Chapter 2, he outlines the Democratic primary and who was going to be running, and he did thusly for the Republicans in Chapter 3. So now, listen to this opening to Chapter 3, Paragraph 3. The Republican Party, to be exact, its twins, has been twins from the moment of its birth. But the twins who inhabit its name and shelter are Jacob and Esau, fratricidal, not fraternal, twins. Within the Republican Party are combined a stream of the loftiest American idealism and a stream of the coarsest American greed. For the next 40 years, and what he means by that is from the party's founding in 1854. For the next 40 years, so he's speaking roughly to the turn of the century. So for the next 40 years, as America swelled with industry and new immigrants from Europe, these twins of the Republican Party, the good and the greedy, fought each other for control of the party and the nation's power. He continues, now that the Democrats have captured the liberal image of the nation, it is forgotten how much of the architecture of America's liberal society was drafted by the Republicans. Today they are regarded as the party of the right. Yet this is the party that abolished slavery, wrote the first laws containing the protections of civil service, passed the first antitrust, railway control, consumer protective and conservation legislation. So, Mr. White's twins, 56 years after he wrote it, remain entrenched in internecine warfare. So maybe it isn't so different after all. You know, I know that back in the day, Dwight Eisenhower, Jack Kennedy, Richard Nixon, they all used the F word. I suspect that even famously patrician Franklin Roosevelt used it. It's not unlikely either that even back in that age of civility, well depicted in Downton Abbey, people probably said it, but not when speaking to the public. Oh, and the candidates that say things like, the party of Lincoln and Reagan cannot go. Mr. Lincoln and Mr. Reagan held very different views. Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. Or wait, I can let others do it. Welcome back. Remember, you can write to us at the Bruce Channel at yahoo.com. You can watch all of our previous shows either on our Facebook page, The Bruce Channel, or at tinyurl.com/Bruce Channel. All right, so a couple of quickies. The first one got left out several times, but I can show it to you today, and that may even be fitting inasmuch as this episode will publish, my episode will publish on the morning of the last episode of Downton Abbey airing tonight. So I've already seen all 9 episodes. I didn't want to wait, so I got the discs. But some number of weeks ago, I became curious. Several times various cast members arrive and leave the train station, and I got to wondering about some of the signage. Not always easy to find either, but I did find this one. This is on the wall at the train station, James Dome Black Lead. I didn't even know what black lead was. Turns out it's a graphite. You could do a lot of things with it. You could shine things, and James Dome's claim to fame was that, as the sign said, it was used in the royal household. And this, I and one of my brothers ride bikes. His is much more awesome than mine, but one of his friends saw this, sent it to him. I thought it was cool enough to show you. Now, there are custom bikes, and there are custom bikes, but I've never seen anything like this. What would you call this? This is a bus in bike form. Okay, so I've mentioned that Ohio and Florida held their primaries on Tuesday, March 15th. The whole country will tune in to see how they do. especially the homeboys, John Kasich and Marco Rubio. Can they win their home state? But that's not the only game in town. Not indeed. No, no, no. March 15th each year is when the Buzzards return to their home in the Cleveland Metro Parks Reservation in Hinckley, Ohio. People set up all over the park. They watch for them on that day, and sure enough, they are never disappointed. One must wonder if that's simply because they don't go set up before then. Why spoil a good thing? It's the 12th. Anyway, in order to support the idea, one would have to avoid certain questions like, how in the world can Buzzards read the calendar? If they cannot, then we must paraphrase the punchline from the famous Thermos joke, how do it know? How do they know? And if they do not read the calendar, they just, will they be thrown off because it's leap year this year? And if they do read the calendar, then consider this. Way back, did the birds change with the shift from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar? Was it the astronomical day or was it the calendar date? Anyway, according to legend, they always return on March 15th. So, just like in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, there's a local celebration. It's a festival known as Buzzard Sunday. This year's is 2 weeks later, so it's the Sunday after the 15th. And, likely the Buzzards' appearance, their feeding habits, they aren't real pretty, which is maybe why they don't have a song like the Swallows returning to Capistrano. But they do get back earlier. The Swallows wait until the 19th. But I bring all this up because here's something new. On previous shows, I've occasionally shown you some of the buzzards around here. This is just not that long ago. It was in winter, sunning himself. And then there was a time, last summer or fall, when 4 of them were perched on my garage roof. But 2 weekends ago, they must have had a convention or formed a convoy, or were forming a convoy to head up to Hinckley. 2 weeks ago, the largest assemblage I have ever seen assembled here. I ran to get my camera, I got off a couple of shots, but of these, not one of them, not the stills and not the video, really convey what I saw. Now, I've seen bunches of buzzards before. I don't think I've ever seen a group larger than 5, so this was astonishing. Okay, so earlier in the week I was in Cleveland. That's Cleveland, North Carolina. And I was there on the penultimate shooting day for the movie Obamaland. Now, it is a feature-length movie. I asked one of the producers when he thought it might be out, and maybe ready for a premiere sometime June, maybe? It'll need to get distribution, but this isn't his first rodeo, and he's successfully gotten distribution before. So, yes, it is an independent film, and you might guess by the name of it that it is a political satire. It takes some serious swings at our politics. And the language and some of the action is certain to earn it an R rating. I think that's sort of, you may not remember, but Groove Tube, Tunnel Vision. Obviously, I'll keep you posted, but here is Darkoya, Connor, and me. This is after shooting for the day, so her makeup and costume are gone, but she plays Michelle Obama. I'm not going to spoil it for you, of course, but I think I can tease you and tempt you. It's set some 25 or so years in the future. There are some real-life people like Ted Nugent, Oprah Winfrey portrayed fictitiously. My character is that of the narrator. I start the picture by introducing myself and start to tell the story of what's happened between now and the time in the future. I heard a really great sentence during the day. I overheard one of the producers talking. He's from New York City originally. He's acted there. He went to California. He's acted there. Found that he really preferred producing. So I loved when I heard him say this. It was just such an interesting take. He said that in New York, people are direct. They're sometimes rough, but they are real. They are so real that someone who is not real stands out and is immediately recognized as fake. But in California, and I think he meant around L.A., nevertheless, he said, wow, yeah, there's nice people there to be sure. But by and large, the people there are fake. They are so fake that when you find one who isn't fake, you notice immediately that they're real because they stand out. All right, so then one more thing about the movie. Many, many locations used, both indoor and out. My library, well, not mine, my character's library, was in a stunning location. It's known as the Darshana Hall Plantation. Its history is fascinating. It is breathtaking. The original land was granted in 1744, land grant. The original house was built in 1753. It still stands. It's beyond description. I took some stills and of the office space. I even took a little bit of video. Look at the fireplace. And by the way, it is the oldest home in Iredell County. It was placed on the National Registry of Historic Property in 1973. The original house is still used, but the newer plantation home was built in 1818. And that's the part of the home we used to shoot my library scenes. Then, the final wing of the home was added, if I remember correctly, in 1993. Breathtaking, truly. You can take a virtual tour. Visit DarshanaHallPlantation.com. If you do, you'll see history, pictures, the email address. That'd be cool if you wanted to arrange to take an actual tour rather than a virtual tour. I have been in some sensational homes, but this one I can't say with certainty because I don't remember every grand home I've ever been in. But I'm inclined to say this one is probably the grandest of the grand. I'm pleased, too, to have made friends with the home's owners, Dr. and Mrs. Hall. This home has been in the family for generations. And while I was in the library waiting, and it's not the only library, I was just fascinated by the books. Many, many wonderful books, and I don't believe Dr. Hall just put them up there for decoration. Oh, he has over 500 pipes. My dad had a pipe made from a deer's antler, and I think he has one too. I told him of my grandfather's pipe, which is about a yard long. He pointed to one on the mantle that was about twice that. Oh, and that one is special. If I understand it correctly, the survivors of the Bataan Death March all signed it. All in all, it was a rather spectacular week. It ended up with me in a lab coat with a stethoscope. And I'll tell you more about that last week. But it was a spectacular week, which is, almost what I'd wish for you. Maybe not the lab coat, but I do hope your upcoming week is the best one you've ever had.